This is my bilk disc sander, one of my most used shop tools, and the tool for which I plan to produce plans. But there's still some improvements that I need to make before we have a plans version of it. I use it not so much for a finishing sander as a final dimensioning sander. The finishing I leave up to my little oscillating hand sanders. The sander uses the commonly available 6x48 belt and a 12-inch diameter disc. The belt sander has completely unobstructed surface, so if I'm sanding casework or drawers, don't have to worry about interfering with the disc as you do with many factory-built or store-bought sanders. Has a tilting table. Has this one, of course, has the built-in shop vac with a separate switch, so if I'm doing metal, I don't have to draw sparks into the sawdust. Retracting casters. Belt tracking adjustment, belt tension release. The belt sander is cantilevered in place so that you can remove and replace belts without any disassembly. And the vacuum, the shop vac suction can be directed to the disc area or to the belt area for maximum airflow to draw dust into the cabinet. I've done a couple of videos on this belt disc sander before, and I'll put links to them in the description below. But here's some of the changes that I'm looking at before producing plans. I've completed the belt sander module for my combination belt disc sander, a plans version of it. And I've hooked it up here to an electric motor temporarily so I can test the tracking, see if I've got the rollers crowned correctly and see if the tracking adjustment system works the way it should. I apply tension with the tension knob and see how it tracks. Well, I'm really pleased with it. Looks like I can make the sanding belt track exactly on the center of the rollers just by a couple of turns of the knob one way or not, the adjusting knob one way or the other. Quite pleased with it. Okay, let me explain what we have inside this belt sander module. The drive roller is attached to the side rails with bolts that are buried side rails both above and below. The top had the material removed to provide clearance for the drive roller and for the idler roller. At the idler roller end is a slider, and fitting into the slider is the idler roller, its trunnion pieces, and the carriers for the idler roller bearings. This arm fits loosely between the top and lower slider plates and fits over this nut. So this provides tilting of the idler roller to provide for tracking. Let me explain the tension system then. I have it over on this side, a guide rod at a fairly heavy spring that fits into a pocket in this tensioning arm. The pocket is slightly elongated and the hole for the guide rod is slightly elongated, so this tensioning arm bears against the spring and is free to pivot. Okay, this arm bears on the inner end of the slider to transmit spring tension to the slider. This is the pawl by which I lock the tensioning arm to different positions. And I just happen to use the adjusting screw as a pivot point for this pawl. And then on the end of this arm I have a knob assembly. I still haven't solved the problem of the wobble of the sanding disc. And I don't know if you've looked at the old video on this, you'll know that I made a hardwood V-pulley and flange to support the disc, and I don't know if the hardwood is moving with moisture change or what the problem is. But right now, there's 70 thousandths of an inch run out, just short of a tenth of an inch, way too much wobble. I was going to use the Shopsmith sanding disc, but it has some wobble in it too, and mainly because I needed a V-pulley on the inside of the sanding disc to drive the sanding belt. And by the time I perched this on the end of the motor shaft, it had some wobble. Besides, the Shopsmith sanding disc is still available, but it's about, the last I saw was about $40 US for a cost. So I'm going to make another pulley flange assembly, and I'm going to use Baltic birch plywood laminated up. I think that might be better than just the solid oak hardwood block. The other area I'm going to improve upon is the dust separation. My logic was that this thing generates quite a lot of sanding dust, and I didn't want to plug up my shop dust collector, so I put in a separate vacuum suction fan and a separate dust collection port. My idea being that airflow into the vacuum would slow down as the ducts got larger here at the bottom, and the dust would separate and fall at the bottom. And as you can see, quite a bit of it does. But very quickly after being cleaned out, the filter bag around the vacuum unit clogs up, and it doesn't pull the dust in very effectively. I intend to improve upon the design of the dust section. I still would like to keep the dust collection separate from my shop vacuum, because this fine dust also will plug up the shop vac very quickly. So I'm going to redesign to have a better dust separation system integral in the cabinet of the improved belt disc sander. Here's what I hope to put into the base of my belt disc sander. It is my version of a theme, T-H-I-E-N, I'm not sure, thin dust separator. Inlet, outlet. And this is the bottom side where dust enters by centrifugal force, moves to the outside of the gradually decreasing radius housing and falls into a receptacle. I tried attaching the hose to the bottom, it didn't work, so I just taped it over, and I'm going to attach a hose to the top and do a little test on it, see how much dust it will actually separate. There, I've attached a paint bucket to the bottom of this thin dust separator. A couple of small screws and some duct tape to roughly seal the bucket to the separator. I've cleaned dust out of the base of my sander. Okay, I've got 260 grams of sawdust. Doesn't weigh much, does it? And I'm going to feed that into the dust separator very slowly, just the way it would be if it was actually below this belt disc sander. Okay, we have 190 grams. Another reason for redesigning the dust extraction system is that I simply have been unable to find a decent source for a vacuum unit. This vacuum unit is out of an antique shop vac, a flat top shop vac. And anything on the market today at a reasonable price incorporates the blower, the suction fan with the plastic top. It doesn't really lend itself to incorporating into the design of a sander stand. So, what I hope to do is design a cabinet that will hold a thin type separator like we've just tested, hook up to my shop dust collection system, and separate out most of the fine dust right here at the cabinet. I wasn't impressed with the 75% dust sawdust extraction that our test produced, but I'm sure that with a little bit of experimenting I can improve upon that. Perhaps the shop vac suction needs to be throttled or restricted down a little bit. I think maybe I had too much airflow going through the theme type separator to make it work as effectively as it should. I think that I should be able to separate 90 to 95% of the dust. I hope you enjoyed this video, which shows the progress so far on my belt disc sander, on my pet projects. Thank you for watching, and I hope you forward information on our channel to other folks you think might be interested. Thanks for subscribing. Thank you.